Welcome to More Than Legal, the show where we go behind the scenes to uncover the fine print of power, purpose, and profit. I'm your host, attorney Danielle Laughlin. After almost 2 decades in the trenches of courtrooms and boardrooms, I have learned that every move leaves a mark and every deal tells a story. What will we uncover today? Let's find out. Hey, real quick, before we dive into the episode, remember, nothing you hear on this podcast is intended to be legal, financial, or tax advice. I invite you to contact any of the guests you hear by looking in the show notes for their contact information, or if you'd like to reach out to me, you can find my contact information at daniellelaughlin.com. All right, now let's get into it. Welcome back to More Than Legal. I'm your host, Danielle Laughlin, and we're here today with a friend and an advocate. Her name is Michelle Bernier. She's actually a lawyer, not an American one though. She's from Venezuela, and Venezuela's been in the news a lot, and Michelle has an amazing story that has such a redemptive quality to it, but also is really poignant in today's world. And so I thought bringing you here today, Michelle, would be a great way to not just introduce you to our audience, who I know is going to love you, but also to really hone in on some underpinnings of what makes business work, not just within the organization, right? But like the systems around the organization that allow a business to thrive and allow families to build legacies. So without further ado, let me go ahead and let you introduce yourself so you can tell the audience how you would like for them to think of you.
Hi, Danielle. I'm so happy. I'm so excited that you bring me on as a guest for your podcast. I'm so happy to support you also as a friend. You are wonderful. Um, when I start like describing myself, it has a lot of things and a lot of um, mixed feelings about it because, I can say, yes, I'm an attorney in Venezuela and in Colombia. Yes, I'm also a constant learner. Yes, I'm also leading right now this organization that you're part of called Liberty Ventures and Principal Business as the chief of staff. But sometimes all of those things that I describe about me um, don't seem like super important, like I am more like, yeah, yes, I do this, I do that. But I had to learn to say it proudly, like, hey, I lead the most important and the only one global network for capitalists for capitalism.
It's amazing.
20,000 business leaders,
20,000 globally.
20,000 business leaders that are around the world from 63 different countries now. And we built this in only 2 years, 2 years and a half only. So definitely, I think this is something that really describes me as to who I am and what I care about. Because this is not only a job for me, this is not just a description on my LinkedIn profile. This is this means the work of a lifetime, not only for me, but for Alexander McCovin, which is the founder and the CEO of Liberty Ventures and Principal Business. And I'm so thrilled to be part of that story, to be part of that puzzle, and just being the person who helps makes all the things possible for this community and that is able to connect with so many different inspiring business leaders and entrepreneurs. I think that defines me even more now and all my background story, rather than any biography that I could say about me right now. I think those are the most highlighting things for me.
I agree. I think a lot of times we wrap our identities into labels. And I think one of the reasons that you and I became instant friends is because it didn't have anything to do with the labels. It had to do with values.
Yes.
And you're doing an incredible job. I have known Alexander for, I think, over 20 years. I'm trying not to count all of those years, but going back to college, law school, and really myself coming into learning a lot more about free market principles and capitalism. And that's where I met him as a younger adult, going kind of starting my journey. And then you kind of did the same thing. And so, why don't you tell the audience? Now you're some years behind me, okay? So we're not the same age, but you came in to meet Alexander because of the same values, um, and like me, I had come from, I'll say, an environment where I had certain beliefs about how things should work and what the rules should be. And all of that changed and shifted for me,
Mhm.
when I was connected with those organizations where he and I found each other as friends. And so, tell the audience about your journey to finding Alexander and getting to the place that you are today.
Yes, yes. That's a wonderful story. I think it's full of coincidences and things that just happened the way it was, and there is no explanation about as to why certain things happen. But I'm so glad that it happened that way. First of all, let's start with some context. Um, for the word, or at least in Venezuela, I'm gonna say in Venezuela, America, the US, is the source of knowledge and is the source of liberty. And all of these concepts and books, and like in the US, there are giants public libraries and stuff, and there is just so much knowledge, so much abundance. But that's just not the way it works in other countries. Like, for example, I remember in my library, if there were 20 books, that would be too much. So I grew up in that environment. And for me, all the ideas came from here. I didn't know English. There were certain books that were not allowed in Venezuela, like, for example, Milton Friedman, forbidden, Hayek, forbidden, Ayn Rand, which is actually my personal favorite, forbidden. And so there are no translations in Spanish either available for those books in Venezuela. Now they have translations available online and stuff, but you will have to go through a VPN or something else to get it. But you first will need to know what you're looking for to
Right, right.
find it in the first place. In my case, my family is not from the business world. Um, they really all have simple lives and works and things, and I also didn't grow up in a very like, I don't think that I grew up in a very political environment. When I was born, Chavez was recently elected as president, and so I didn't get that version of Venezuela before Chavez. I grew
Mm.
up with that, so for me, it was normal. There was no like um, shock to it, right? So I agree with the ideas of liberty, because for me, what the communism propaganda, the socialism propaganda was telling me on TV, it didn't make any sense. For example, as I grew up and Chavez was in TV for 6, 8 hours, sometimes he went on TV for 14 hours. And something that he was famous for is that every time he was on TV, you could not see any of all your other channels. Like, he took all of the national um, channels, and also international channels, private channels, like all the communication. And it was only his face that you could see when he was speaking. And he didn't care if it was 8 hours, 14 hours. I think one day he spent a full day talking. And for me, those things didn't make sense. I was like, okay, isn't like the president of a country supposed to work? So
Work and do something.
like those things on the back of my head, and I didn't even know about any of the ideas or the name for it. I didn't know that there was a word freedom, because I was born in 1999, so I didn't even know that that was a word. um so again, if you need to, if you want to find these books, that I'm telling you about, you kind of need to know the name, or you need to know that you're looking for them. In my case, I wasn't looking for them. They were forbidden. I didn't have any source of light or knowledge. So what do? I start working, I start searching online for organizations where I can build my leadership skills. This was literally what I type on Google. And the first things that pops up is Students for Liberty applications open. So I go ahead and apply. They even asked me about my favorite thinkers. I didn't even know who my favorite thinker were. Like, I didn't even know, but I was honest and I told them like, hey, I might not know, but I agree with this and this and these values. And I have a deep passion for doing this and this and that. And so if you teach me, I will teach others. So they accept me. I go into Students for Liberty. The first question that the first conversation that I got to presence was like a discussion about the central bank that I couldn't understand, because it was like, okay, my aunt works at the central bank. Like, why do you want to take my aunt? You know, like I
My
didn't.
aunt's job is important. Yes.
I was like, I didn't understand anything. So at the beginning, I thought, oh, maybe this is not my place. They are having conversations that I do not understand, discussions that I don't know why this is important, and overall, um, they have problems that I don't know if I can solve. Like, I don't know if I can solve the central bank situation. Like, I was just like,
Mm-hmm.
too much for me. And I was
Mm-hmm.
18 at the moment. So, of course. And so, well, but I decided to stay. I spent about 5 years in a Student for Liberty. So it was almost like a career. I decided to take on projects about entrepreneurship because I was like, okay, maybe we cannot agree on all the issues, but something that we can all agree is that entrepreneurship is a key for human flourishing. So I was like, okay, entrepreneurship is my way of making people understand why this is important. And I did a project teaching young people about entrepreneurship in Colombia who were in very vulnerable situations. And I worked on a work in Dubai. But I didn't have they had a scholarship for me to go to Dubai to receive the award, but the scholarship didn't include the plane tickets. So I start a fundraising campaign. And how do I reach out? I go and find the CEO and the founder of Students for Liberty, Alexander McCovin, and I told him like, hey, this is my story. I have been 5 years with the organization. This is what I have been doing. There is an opportunity for me to go and receive this award. Do you want to support me? And he said yes. And when he saw that I fundraising all the money, he told me, hey, you should come work with me. And
Mm.
at the moment, I say, no, no worries. I have my own thing. A Student for Liberty is something that I do as a volunteer, by the way. All 5 years were as a volunteer work. So for me, it wasn't really a job, right? And also this fundraising culture, this is in the US. In Venezuela, there is no role like major gift officer, development officer. All of those roles in Venezuela doesn't exist. So I didn't understand how that will be a job. Like, how fundraising is a skill for a job. I didn't understand that at all. So I was like, no, no worries. This is just volunteering. And yeah. And then so um 2 years later, I moved from um Colombia. Well, that's a different story, but I moved from Colombia to the US, and first comer, I had no job, no thing. I was the only one from my family who spoke English at the time. So I was like,
Mm.
okay, I have this responsibility of sorting something out. So I reach out to him and I say, hey, do you remember once you offered me a job? If you still have that available, I would love to be part of it. I don't know many things about this, but I can learn. The same mindset as with the Students for Liberty. He told me, well, I don't have a job, but I'm building something called Liberty Ventures. And then I say, let's
Amazing.
help you build it. I
Yes.
didn't even know that, there was no role for Liberty Ventures. At the moment, it was just an idea. There wasn't like an open role or we didn't know, we haven't figured it out at the moment, like, okay, what are we gonna do and how are we gonna do it. It was just a very broad and abstract idea. We didn't even know that we were gonna be able to do this. So it was
I
one
love
of
this.
the rewarding experiences of my life.
So there's so much here
Yes.
because there's another there's other context too. So I'm gonna say let's kind of break down a couple of things.
Yes.
So the first idea that really stands out to me about this is you lived in an environment where there weren't a lot of books, there weren't a lot of knowledge. I share that experience too as a person. In school, of course, in America, there's we already have the foundations of ideas. So these ideas were part of my existence. But um, you sought this information. I think that's the very first thing, is that you didn't have an entitlement expectation that someone was supposed to give this information to you, or that you were somehow unfairly treated because you didn't know about all of this. You really took that ownership mentality and said, I'm going to take control because I want to know. And you first looked at leadership, right? So the very first keyword that I kind of picked up on was leadership. So you're a young 18-year-old girl in Venezuela. You're like, something's weird here. I didn't know that Maduro was on that long. I did recently learn, I'm watching a documentary about him right now, and I did learn that or about Venezuela, I guess you would say. But he has a cartoon. He's a superhero.
Yeah.
He actually feeds the children of the country his cartoon, and he's the savior and the superhero for all of their problems.
And guess who?
Um,
Do you know who is the villain?
who's the villain?
Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Out of all, like, I just want to stop there and highlight that, like, out of all people that could have been the villain on this cartoon, he chose a business leader.
Yes, exactly. That is so. I did not know that.
Mhm.
Maybe I haven't gotten that far in the documentary, but wow. Doesn't it say something, right? Because who's the biggest threat to a dictator? This is what I was so happy to kind of bring to the audience today, because there's a lot out there that's going on in our world, but Venezuela's become a hot topic, as has Honduras, right? So we're
Mhm.
looking at the Honduran election. We're now post election, not yet with a president. We have a team member, Marcial, who you've met, at least virtually anyway, and he is in Honduras. And we talk very openly about these ideas in our firm because they underpin everything that we do. And so we've been celebrating what is kind of just only a partial win at this point in Honduras. But it's a win of ideas, and it's a win of philosophy more than anything else. And I think that there is an underpinning of entrepreneurship that many of us take for granted. And that is the idea that the ideas matter, right? Ideas matter, and we have to give them value, and we have to make them part of our business, part of our value proposition, that we are principled, right? Principled business. We have principles. Of course, we are profit driven, but why? Why are we profit driven? Because being profit driven brings more value to more people, not because I just need to be a rich and wealthy person. Of course, there are plenty of people that do that. I don't find that to be unethical unless they're harming and stealing from other people. But really, Liberty Ventures and Principal Business is about doing business thoughtfully, really, is the idea. So you had to essentially escape Venezuela,
Yeah.
and you had to do that because of ideas.
Mhm.
Tell the audience about that experience.
It is crazy to say that it is crazy to say that promoting the ideas of respect for individual agency, entrepreneurship, value creation, and collaboration can get you in a very bad situation where your security feels threatened, your family security feels threatened. And it's crazy to think that these ideas, again, respect for individual agency, value creation, collaboration, entrepreneurship, all really good words. They make you feel like a criminal for just saying this out loud and for promoting this. When I was in Venezuela, again, I was in 5 years of activism, bringing these ideas to public schools. To literally, my goal was like, okay, if I didn't know about any of this, I want, and now I do, I want more people to learn it too. So I went to every single corner of Maracaibo, my city, possible. Even kids that didn't know how to read, we had a program to teach them how to read first, and then to read the books of capitalism. That was a challenge. I'm gonna do a pause on the story and just say that a little, talk a little bit about that. That was a challenge because these kids were supposed to work in the streets selling things, and their parents didn't want them to learn how to read. So we had to tell the parents that, hey, we're gonna give them lunch, and so they can be with us learning how to read, but because their parents want them in the streets, literally, in avenues, or like just selling things on the street. So let's just
Mm.
make a pause there to understand like the difficulty of the work that has been doing and that has been done. But I don't believe I did anything wrong at all. I in my place at the moment, when I was 19 years old, I didn't feel like this was fair to be criminalized and persecuted for doing these kind of things, you know?
Yes.
And so I want a scholarship to come to the US to learn from the US institutions and legal framework and constitution, and again, all good words. Um,
Hmm.
and I was only one of five Venezuelans that were selected to come from for this program. And as soon as I did that, it seems like that was the it seems like that was the thing that bothered the government the most, because I was again doing activism for 5 years, and even though I was called a lot of things, they never did something to me or to my family before that. But as they thought that I was going to the US or that I was some kind of a spy, that was the way they frame it. Um, that kind of gives them the card to then go and kidnap my mom for 1 day and a half, the worst day and a half of my life. I was
Mm.
counting the hours to see her finally. I didn't know if what was going to happen. And so when I packed my suitcase to go to this exchange program, that was the thing that I had. I packed a suitcase to go to an exchange program for only 3 months. And when the exchange program finished, we all could agree, like, okay, you cannot go back home, but I didn't have time to close any of my projects, to say goodbye, or to even pick up my degree, like to receive it in my ceremony. After years of hard study and work, someone else had to get it for me and then send it to my new address.
Wow.
So like those things, um, I was actually talking about this the other day with a friend, that she's from the US, and she was saying like, um, yeah, we cannot get emotional when we are defending capitalism, because the emotion takes the deep debate out of the place, out of the situation. And I say, okay, well, like, I think you don't get emotional until they do it to you, like until
Correct.
they take something out of you, because those little things, they take a hug from your family. They take
Mm-hmm.
the family dinners where maybe the table was full, now it's empty. They take your photos, like you're not able to bring them when you're migrating because they're full of albums. I don't know if you're the same, but I had about 100 albums in my house.
Yeah.
um they take those things, like me being able to be in my graduation day. They take those little things, and until they do it to you, you won't feel emotional, and you don't think that it's life or death, or death, but it is, because it is your life. And it is those little things that they take from you, from your soul, from you as a person. So that's why this is important. And it's not only political conversations, it's not only about, do we agree on a certain politician or not. This is about, as you say, values and principles that guide our life, because someone that is principled will never act this way.
Correct. Correct. Um, wow. Michelle, there's so much I got to say, because we talked before, but there's so many layers to your story, and there's really, I want to touch on a couple of ideas. The first thing is most recently what you said about emotion, right? Um, Emotion drives everything. Emotion drives sales. Emotion drives votes. Emotion drives everything that we do. And business is personal. It's deeply personal, particularly if it's business that's family business, right? And so for a lot of our listeners, you know, they struggle. I know with some of the clients that we have, they struggle sometimes because they're like, I'm sorry if I'm getting emotional. I'm sorry if I'm, and they're constantly apologizing for being a human, and for feeling a certain way about their business or what's happening in their lives personally or in their businesses. And I think it's important that we normalize. We don't have a separation between our professional life and our personal life. They're very integrated and they're very unique. And it really goes back to what you talked about in the beginning, which is my identity is not what I do. It's just part of who I am, my ideas, my principles. And so going to the principle idea, you said that it was criminal to want to learn. It was criminal to want to learn about freedom, teach kids freedom of thought by teaching them how to read.
Michelle's story shows how ideas shape her lives. In part 2, we zoom out to talk about why these ideas matter for business leaders. Stay tuned for part 2 of Michelle's journey.
Thank you for listening to the show. Remember, stay sharp, stay curious, and stay tuned for our next episode. Bye for now.